Hello and welcome to Scout Report on Eurofootball Daily, where today we've singled out 3 good players underused and unappreciated at their current teams. And we start with one man who will be sweating as Manchester United gear up for a busy end to the transfer window. Fred. We expected teething problems at the beginning of Erik ten Hag's tenure at Manchester United, but the new coach's achievements in bald fraud over the first 2 weeks of the season alarmed even those already doubting him. A home defeat to Brighton and a drubbing on the road at Brentford left the Dutchman fighting for credibility, and even a spectacular victory over Liverpool will only have gone part of the way to allaying fans' fears. In such a messy context, almost everyone has a shot at making themselves a starter, but United's £70 million swoop for Casemiro suggests that Fred has not convinced ETH of his value, despite playing over 2,000 league minutes for the last 3 years running. One problem is that there's no clear fit for Fred at a club the size of United. For the Red Devils, a defensive midfielder can't simply be a destroyer, but needs to be capable of setting the tempo too, and providing enough distribution to allow the club's talented forwards to remain further upfield. Box-to-box players, meanwhile, are expected to have creative and goal-scoring chops, and a higher technical level than Fred, and even his career best return of 4 goals and 4 assists last season won't be enough to turn United fans on him. After all, Pogba departed in June, having averaged a goal or assist every 135 minutes over multiple campaigns in the Northwest, a better rate than Sadio Mane over the last 3 years with Liverpool. So Fred is actually a somewhat unusual player. Though he puts up huge defensive numbers, he doesn't sit in front of the back line, but actively hunts for the ball. While Casemiro averaged 16 pressures per 90 last year, Fred hit nearly 25, and though they won possession about the same amount, north of 5 times a game, his tendency to go looking for the man on the ball means that Fred is less reliably in position to help the defence, as he can be evaded with relative ease, getting dribbled past 73% of the time, while Casemiro is only beaten 53% of the time. However, he's also much more mobile than the majority of conventional sixes United have been previously linked with, like Ruben Neves or Wilfred Ndidi. When he arrived in the UK, Fred was used to much more freedom, running the game for UCL regulars Shakhtar Donetsk, and in that first 12 months of Premier League football, the Brazilian completed 6.6 progressive carries each game, bettering 86% of midfielders across Europe's top 5 leagues. And of the 280 yards he covered with the ball per 90, half of that was forwards, making him as positive as longtime United target Declan Rice. But under a succession of sceptical coaches, his output has dwindled, and now he runs upfield about half as much as he did before, and only completed 3 progressive carries per 90 in 21-22. Still level with Casemiro, who is also older and more injury prone, but a clear sign that the Red Devils have curbed the 29-year-old's natural game. If United are expecting a much more expansive passer in the 4-time Champions League winner, they might be in for a shock. He does manage almost twice as many long balls, 11 a match with Fred at 6.5, but they're close on passes into the final third at 6.4 to 5.2, and progressive passes too, while Fred is actually the much better creator, laying on more chances than Casemiro since 2020, despite Real Madrid averaging 15.9 shots a game in that time to United's 13.5. In all, it's not hard to imagine a world where Fred is playing for, say, Everton, and he's a well-regarded two-way midfielder always touted for a move to a bigger side. Instead, he spent the best years of his career aboard a ship sinking in slow motion. But with a year left on his deal, there's time to find a better fit. Our shout, a Graham Potter-fueled remontada at Brighton. Callum Hudson-Odoi. A disappointing 21-22 campaign and the departure of owner Roman Abramovich has prompted a radical rethink of Chelsea's squad entering the current season, and left out on the bench, along with Hakim Ziyech and Christian Pulisic, is Callum Hudson-Odoi. Another hyper-talented graduate of the club's legendary Cobham Academy, Hudson-Odoi has been a major casualty of the move to a back 3, with Tuchel's version of the setup favouring inside forwards over traditional winger types, hence the current Chelsea front 3 of Sterling, Mount and Havertz, all comfortable playing through the middle rather than with chalk on their boots. That means CHO doesn't quite fit his club's needs, and his huge 100k a week wages, offered to fend off Bayern Munich 2 years ago, are a sizable burden on the team's ambitions, prompting talk of a win-win temporary switch to another Premier League side, as clubs like Newcastle circle the youngster. That would feel like a step down for the wide man, but it's perhaps unsurprising given that he started just 28 games in the last 3 league campaigns, averaging about 960 minutes a season. Nonetheless, he has been productive in that time, registering 14 goal involvements in those starts, and his expected goal numbers back up that output, placing him level with Ziyech and Pulisic on roughly 0.5 per 90. Interestingly, exactly where Mason Mount was at the same age, with the England man since blossoming into a double-double attacker, hitting 11 goals and 10 assists in the Premier League last year. So there's promise in front of goal, but that isn't actually what makes Cho special. What stands out in his profile is that despite spending his time out wide, he's a very high-volume passer, generally managing about 45 passes per 90, which is in the top 7% of wingers and attacking midfielders. For context, it's about the same as KDB, Ødegaard or Fernandes, and it's pretty remarkable for a youngster at a team as big as Chelsea. After all, if you're going to demand the ball there, you need to be able to do something special with it, otherwise teammates will simply stop giving it to you. But Hudson-Odoi shows signs of truly exceptional vision. Over the last 3 years, he's created about 2.3 chances a game, and he passes into the penalty area roughly 3 times a match, which is insane, ranking second in the Prem behind De Bruyne and ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold. And impressively, these aren't just crosses swung in hopefully and made successful by big forwards like Tammy Abraham and Lukaku. Under a third of Hudson-Odoi's completed balls into the box are crosses, with the Englishman preferring to cut inside and combine, and he overall finds the target with over 80% of his passes, which is very high for an attacker. This is the kind of profile any top club could use. And it's not all. If you try and limit Hudson-Odoi's ability to find a man in the danger zone, he can simply zip into space himself, with ball carrying numbers which rank alongside the very best players in the sport. That's not hyperbole. Last year he ranked 15th in Europe for progressive carries and 3rd for carrying the ball into the box. The year before he was 3rd and 3rd, outstripping some guys you might have heard of, like Mbappe and Neymar. So even if he's not this good over a full season and only managed 2/3 of the output, you've still got a player unusually effective at taking possession into the areas of the pitch that matter the most. If he can maintain these stats over 38 games, you've got one of the best wide men in the world. That isn't to say there aren't question marks. Cho's pressing is not particularly strong, he loses the ball a lot, over 3 times a match, and his shots are light, generally coming in under 2 per 90. But it's easy to see how a possession-obsessed coach like Mikel Arteta, or a team in need of a wide creator like Everton again, could completely change the public perception of the youngster. There's also a concern over his long-term physical state, after 2 Achilles issues since 2018, as well as hip problems and a bout of COVID. But if he retains his burst and balance, at only 21 he has plenty of time to jumpstart a stellar career. Chelsea need to play him or get out of his way. Renan Lodi. If you only glanced at the stats, you'd imagine Renan Lodi is a key player for Atletico Madrid. After all, the Brazilian made 29 appearances in La Liga last season, a total bettered by just 6 players in the squad. But racking up only 13 starts meant that he ended the year with under 1,200 minutes, 17th among his Wanda Metropolitano teammates. We don't really understand it, and by the looks of things the market doesn't either. Lodi has been linked with Newcastle and Manchester City this summer alone, but as it currently stands he's only 3rd or 4th choice for Simeone's left flank, the inscrutable Argentinian preferring Saul, Carrasco and maybe even Reinildo for the wing-back slot. It's strange because Lodi is still just 24 and statistically seems to be good at basically everything. A solid passer from the moment he arrived from Atletico Paranaense, he ranked 3rd in the squad for completed balls into the box in his first year, and 6th in his second year, but fell all the way to 12th last term, while he's also attempting fewer mid and long range passes despite short ones maintaining their level, perhaps a sign that he's low on confidence or that his coach has specifically instructed him to keep it simple. The possession numbers tell a similar story. In 2020-21, Lodi was 6th at the club for progressive passes received, meaning that after the forwards and adventurous midfielder Marcos Llorente, Lodi was the most frequent target when his teammates were trying to move the ball towards goal. But in 21-22 the fullback had slipped down to 9th in the rankings, while his dribbles dropped from 1.9 per 90, a truly phenomenal number, placing ahead of Modric and Frenkie de Jong, to 1.3, still very good, but no longer top 6% of players in his position good. You could of course read these stats the opposite way to us, interpreting the positive numbers as a mirage and the middling ones as more representative of the true quality of the player. But even if we overestimate the level he can play at, he's at least going to be defensively sound, maintaining a rate of over 4 tackles and interceptions per 90, peaking at 4.5 last year, while he presses more than average and succeeds with an above average proportion of those pressures, better than 1 in 3. Manchester City may have been an unlikely landing spot, but next summer Lodi will have 2 years left on his deal, making it the ideal time for Atleti to cash in on him, and giving him over half a career to achieve his potential and fill his bank account. Perhaps Juventus, an upwardly mobile Premier League side, or even Barcelona can hand him a new beginning. So those are 3 players who we think are stuck at the wrong club, but who else could we have included? Let us know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, drop us a like and subscribe to EFD, hit the notification bell and you'll never miss an upload. We'll see you next time.